It's your Wednesday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand, back at it for another day. Hope you guys are having a great day out there. A really good show coming up. Let me just tell you that right off the bat. Chip Scoggins joins me here in just a little bit. Some good Vikings talk on introductory news conference, getting ready for camp with Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah on Monday. Things we liked, things we didn't like from that, plus some quarterback talk. Chip thinks this is a big opportunity for Sam Darnold. Everyone's talking about J.J. McCarthy, the rookie drafted 10th overall by the Vikings. Certainly looks to be the quarterback of the future, but probably the quarterback of the present. Certainly the guy who will open camp, taking the majority of the first team reps, and almost certainly will start the year as the starting quarterback is Sam Darnold. And he is a bit of the cautionary tale for rushing J.J. McCarthy, right? He was the number 3 overall pick in 2018. We've been through this before, but, the Jets needed a quarterback. They thought he could plug and play, and his development did not go the way he wanted to, the way they wanted to. Now he's kind of become a journeyman. This is his, 7th season, multiple teams, a chance for Sam Darnold to start again, probably his last viable chance as a starter if it doesn't work out. So big opportunity for Sam Darnold and the Vikings this year while he keeps the seat warm for however long it is warm until J.J. McCarthy is ready to take over. So Chip and I will get into that. We'll get into some Gopher football talk as well as they prepare to start practice next week. Yeah, it's that time of year already, even if it's late July, starting to think about the fall. Plenty of summer left, though. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Plenty of summer left. Got a little bit of extra Vikings thoughts at the end of the show as well. Ben Gessling and I recorded an Access Vikings podcast yesterday, so check that out. But we did so before news of Christian Darrisaw's extension or the return of popular cornerback Duke Shelley, who made some big plays for them in the 2022 season. First, though, what I miss, let's start with the Twins, who lost to the Phillies 3-0 on Tuesday night. Pitcher's duel. It was 0-0 into the 9th, and unfortunately for the Twins, Joan Duran had a rough 9th, got the bases loaded, sac fly, 2-run double by Nick Castellanos. Was not a major news world event when he got his big hit, unlike most of the other times he's gotten a big hit. That has been the great meme over the last few years, is the long fly ball to left by Nick Castellanos. Twins lose 3-0. Weird time to be thinking that what they need to add at the trade deadline is pitching, right? They got another great start from Simeon Woods-Richardson, maybe seeing enough body of work from Simeon Woods-Richardson to think, hey, he could be a guy they count on in the rotation going forward, but probably still not a guy you're going to say, okay, this is a guy, if you make the postseason, he's in the postseason rotation. Chris Paddock, injured right now. Don't know what you can count on with him down the stretch. So you've got your clearly defined top 3 that you started the year with Pablo Lopez, Bailey Ober, and Joe Ryan in some order like that. And they got a really encouraging start from Pablo Lopez coming out of the All-Star break. Maybe he got some rest, got a chance to kind of refocus himself after a disappointing, first 3.5 months of the year. But if you look at it, as Bobby Nightingale wrote today, they've got an 80% chance still of making the playoffs, so still a decent chance of overtaking Cleveland in the division race. If you are going to make the playoffs and if you are going to do anything in the playoffs these days, you pretty much need at least 4 good starting pitchers. You've got to go that deep. Just look at last year's Twins as an example. I mean, they were set up to win in the playoffs, because they had a top 2 that was very much on the top of their game and very much one of the best duos in the postseason, and of course all of baseball last year, with Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray. Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray go out in games 1 and 2 against the Blue Jays. Twins win 3-1 and 2-0 in those games, in case you forgot. Those were pitchers' duels all the way, and the fact that they had 2 great pitchers led them to their first, playoff series win in 20-plus years. Now, you also get to the point where even if you line it up perfectly and you get that sweep in the 3-game wildcard round, you're going to need to go with your third starter in the first game of the division series, which the Twins did last year. Bailey Ober starts. They lose 6-4 to Houston. Come back then with their top two guys, Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray. Lopez pitches great. Gray has a disappointing outing. That's really the pivot point in the series. They lose Game 3, tied 1-1 when that series came back to Target Field. They had to be feeling good about their chances right up until that point. Sonny Gray has a clunker, but otherwise they were set up in the right way. But then you get to Game 4, they throw Joe Ryan for a little while. They kind of go to a bullpen game, hoping to get kind of back to a Game 5, kind of all hands on deck. Who knows how it goes? But you're going to need 4 starters in any kind of scenario where you're going to make a deep, deep playoff run. And right now, I mean, you look at it, you say, if Lopez is going good, you like Lopez, so you're okay there. Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober, I think, have shown enough this season to be worthy of consideration for those 2-3 spots, but still some questions there, even though you probably kind of have to just find out at a certain point. But they've been one starting pitcher short all year, and they've made up for it by A, staying relatively healthy, and B, getting a better than expected performance out of Simeon Woods Richardson. But if they are going to be a serious playoff contender, they probably need to add another top 3 starter. Now, the payroll is limiting in a certain degree. They cut a ton of payroll this past year, over $30 million, as they navigate, less money from TV contracts, more young players who naturally make less money. But 2 things to that right now. One, it's less expensive to add somebody now because you're only paying 2 months of their salary instead of 6. So if you add a guy at the deadline who is a free agent next year, the cost of both the contract and the cost of what you have to give up to get them shouldn't be as bad as it would have been at the start of the season. So they've kind of finessed this to the point where they got to this point in really good shape. This is kind of what I thought they had to do at the start of the year. Can they get to late July in the mix, in the race, when they can then, spend, $6 to $8 million on a pitcher instead of $25 million on a pitcher, because you're only paying the prorated portion of their salary. So that is a consideration. Now, the wild card makes it basically that you need to do this. The wild card round, though, also makes it harder to add pitching right now because, as Derek Falvey said the other day, everybody thinks they're in the race still. There's only like a few National League teams that Bobby wrote about that are more than 4 games out of the wild card race. You look around, everybody thinks they're close to competing. So something might not happen for the next 1 or 2 days. It might take a little bit of separation as teams maybe go from 4 games out to 7 games out in a week. Say they have a little cold streak, then all of a sudden they're at July 28th, 29th. They're not in the race anymore. Then they can consider, okay, we have to cut our losses. We're going to become sellers. We're going to make that trade and pull that off. So the Twins have options. They have possibilities, but I think they have to wait out the market another 3 or 4 days. So what they do will tell you a lot about how they feel about their team this season, how they feel about spending a little bit money, and how they feel about actually competing again and getting that taste back in their mouth again of winning another playoff series and not waiting another 2 decades.
Royal Credit Union's smart checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Enjoy financial freedom when you open your Royal Credit Union smart checking account online at rcu.org/go-checking. Insured by NCUA.
Let's talk a little purple on Daily Delivery today with Chip Scoggins, columnist from the Star Tribune. It's been an off season for the Vikings, Chip. Not a lot of, the early on part of it, I guess, was a lot of probably what they wanted, draft pick talk and change in quarterback talk. The last few weeks, tragic death of Kyrie Jackson, their rookie cornerback, and of course, about a week after that, Jordan Addison arrested on suspicion of DWI out in California. Not the kind of news they want to be making. Tragic and then self-inflicted to a certain degree. You wrote about Jordan Addison this week. What did you make of what you heard from Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah on Monday?
Yeah, it was a I don't want to say strange, but it was a different type of kickoff press conference that we normally have at training camp. This was their first. The rookies had started reporting on Sunday, and this is our first chance to see Kwesi and KOC since, I guess, probably the draft, maybe.
Probably the draft, yeah.
But the first access that they had since the tragic news of Kyrie Jackson's death, and then Jordan Addison. So it was you had two heavy topics, completely different topics that needed to be addressed with them. And the Jordan Addison thing, I thought I would hear a little more anger from them.
Me too.
Because this is the second driving related incident with Jordan in a span of a year, but more so that it came a week after Kyrie Jackson's was killed in a car wreck.
Yeah.
But it was more supportive than I didn't really get a sense of any anger at all. I mean, they both said they were disappointed, but they talked about putting their arms around him, and Kwesi said that he said using the term discipline is not really how we talk inside the
I used that on
facility.
Tuesday show, that clip. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, it was, that kind of caught me off guard. And I understand that their whole everything that they built has been about communication and getting away from the quote fear-based organization that was Mike Zimmer was labeled by Eric Kendricks on the way out the door.
Right.
And I understand that, but I think if there's ever a moment to really air your frustration, and maybe this is just not what these two leaders are ever going to do, and it's not their nature, and I understand that, but I thought there'd be a little more anger and probably a little more of their disappointment expressed in what Addison has done. And the other thing is, if they're going to let the legal process play out and let the NFL do their investigation, but if this goes through, I mean, you're likely looking at a suspension for him, and like that puts the organization in a tough spot, because there's a very real possibility that the Vikings start this season without Jordan Addison and TJ Hockenson. Yeah, that's a tough spot. And so I thought we'd hear a little more anger from them.
Yeah, and I wondered, the piece about when the suspension would happen. Ben Gessling and I talked about that on Access Vikings. It could take longer than 2 months for the process to play out, or however long it takes. It might not be at the start of the season if it did happen, but nonetheless, all those points are good ones. And I was surprised too. I thought the tone, it kind of picked up where it left off after he had the speeding incident last year, where it was, I knew they took it seriously, but they didn't seem like it took it as seriously as I took it last year when he got caught going 140. And so I'm curious, like, what do you think? Is this them? Is this like how they handle things, at least publicly, talking about KOC and Kwesi? Is this a sign of the times in that this is how we handle players of this generation? Is it Addison specifically, who they've deemed how we don't want to come out and rip this guy? Is it something different they're saying publicly versus privately? Like, what do you think it is? Because it didn't hit on all the right notes. I get that we want to support the guy note. The other side of the we're disappointed or angry, as you said, that part fell short to me too.
Yeah, I think it's more how they run their operation, in that they try to surround players in different situations, where it's off the field, on field, personal lives, what have you, in with an approach of, hey, we're here to support you. We're going to listen. We're going to work through issues together. We're going to provide you with resources. We're going to do this, versus just, drop the hammer, be angry, have people walking on eggshells, fearful of their job. I mean, that's just not who they're going to be. So it may be a little bit of the player understanding kind of how to deal with him. It may be the sign of the times, and kind of how we see other organizations kind of taking this. But I think more than anything, it's just their approach. And they talk a lot about the culture. We hear that often. We heard it a lot yesterday. They actually have the culture shield, that they put up in there. Whatever you think about it, it means a lot to them, and that's how they approach it, and that's how they built this kind of their operation. So I think it's more reflective of just how they go about problem solving.
Yeah, I guess it puts them in a spot though where, if they're when they're saying we've got to be disciplined, we've got to there's a discipline component to this. They got to let the process play out. I get all that. Behind the scenes, they better be telling Jordan Addison this can't happen again, or I mean, like Ben and I talked about on Nexus Vikings, that might be it. Like you might be gone if something else happens.
Well, that's it. I mean, that was my point is, if that's your approach, he needs to leave that meeting unequivocally understanding this is the last one. Like they're not going to continue to tolerate this because let's be honest. I mean, he's been fortunate.
Yeah.
He's just gotten tickets and arrested. Like, this could end tragically.
Yes.
If he doesn't, get control of the driving related things, whether it's speeding or, we need to see the final details of what this investigation comes out because they're still pretty scarce. But I mean, and you just have to look to your teammate. Kyrie Jackson, what happened to him? I mean, we still have to get all the final details from that. But the initial police report was a speeding car ran them off the road. And so, and O'Connell said Jackson's tragedy served as a wake-up call to anybody that reminded is like, hey, you're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Right.
You're not promised tomorrow. And so I would suspect that message is going to get delivered to Addison in a meaningful way. And when they meet, I assume, obviously O'Connell and Kwesi have had conversations with him, but probably not in person yet, just over the phone. And so reporting day is Tuesday for all veterans. First day of practice is Wednesday. And so I would hope that is going to be a stern message delivered to him is like, this can't keep happening. I mean, this is something, because here's the other thing is like, not only is this, affect Addison, but other players are watching this.
Oh yeah.
And like, they see like, okay, no, wait a sec, there's no real punishment for him. Now, the NFL can punish him if if you're missing multiple games, that's multiple paychecks, and that's a steep thing for players to lose when they start hitting them in the pocketbook. And so, I the tone was different than what we thought it was, but I'm guessing and hoping that there's some real serious conversations that they have taken place when Addison shows up for camp.
Anything else catch your ear over there before we move on to anything else here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Kyrie Jackson situation is devastating, and a contingent of leaders, Kwesi and O'Connell, and some coaches are going to go to the funeral, and I think it's what the Wills have done. That didn't surprise me because
me neither.
In terms of ownership and providing support and doing all the right things in terms of supporting the team, players, backing in financial, they hit the mark constantly with that, and for them to support Kyrie's family financially and honor the signing bonus and the pay help cover the costs. I thought that was a classy gesture. And I think this ownership group is a first class in that way, in the way they run this team. And so that didn't surprise me, but it was nice to hear.
Isn't it amazing too? I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but just thinking about the ownership group, it's been almost 20 years since they bought the team, right? It feels it still feels somewhat fresh just because I know you get older and decades span together, but they bought the team 2005, 2006, somewhere in there, right? 2005.
Yeah, if you have your computer, Google. I actually did a column on this at OTAs and talked to Mark Wilf, and that you think back to it when they bought the team and took over.
From Red McCombs and
the skepticism here was I thought fair because these are outsiders coming. What's their intention? Are they going to try to move the team? But they have become really good owners. Yeah, and they put down roots here. They've they've not only, built a stadium with public assistance, but
yes.
the facility is first class. Everything that this team needs to win has been there in terms of financial support. They don't meddle. They stay, they're not these owners dictating things, how they, in the football matters, they leave that to the people they hire. They've been very good stewards in terms of the community involvement and making an impact in charity and different foundations and things that they do to try to improve the community off the field. So yeah, it's like you blink and all of a sudden they've been here for 2 decades, and it's like, wait a second, what just happened?
I know.
And for all the skepticism and questions that we had initially about what were the intentions, I think you would have to say Mark and Ziggy have, and their brothers have really stepped up and become really, really good owners.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the only thing missing perpetually is a championship. They're not the first to try and not succeed so far, but
I don't think they're the hurdle to it, though. I don't think that they're 100%. Standing in the way of it.
No, they're not. I mean, and whether they ever get one could depend largely on how this quarterback draft went. I mean, and maybe we're turning the page here to a little football talk. I'm sure they can't wait to talk and play football, when they're back on the field Wednesday. McCarthy is the big unknown, and nothing that O'Connell said Monday was surprising in terms of, hey, Darnold's going to get the first team reps, but McCarthy will get a few in camp. They're going to be careful with this, though, and it still makes me think 2024. This ain't it. This ain't the year they're playing for.
I mean, you said that McCarthy is the unknown, and he is, but I would say Darnold to an extent is too, because we don't know what version of Darnold we're going to see. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
To me, I'm going to write about this, I think, Wednesday off first practice. This is a referendum on him, because I will be stunned if J.J. McCarthy is a starter anytime before the first 5 games. I don't think there's a reason they gave Sam Darnold $10 million.
Right.
Because they're not going to rush McCarthy. I mean, I don't think O'Connell can be any more clear about that. I mean, this process, they're going to let play out how it, until they feel completely comfortable that he's the guy, they're not going to rush him in there. And so they don't have to. They signed a veteran. And so you look at now, if he has to start the seasons without Hockenson and Addison, that's not exactly what he thought he was going to be walking into. But I think the foundation around Darnold is the best in his career. So this is the best shot for him to prove that he's a starting quarterback in the NFL this season.
Yeah.
And he either is or he's not, and that's, we can all guess about how it's going to go, but I don't think anybody really can say with any degree of certainty how it will go.
I look at his history and I don't see like a Baker Mayfield type renaissance season. Maybe I'm wrong, but Mayfield was more accomplished than Darnold at this stage of their career. I mean, Tampa Bay took a 1-year flyer on Mayfield last year. Turned out great for both of them. They make the playoffs. Mayfield gets a contract. All of a sudden, he's a starter again, and he had a good year. He had some success in Cleveland. It wasn't great success, but he had some moments in Cleveland more than Darnold had in New York or the other stops he's had along the way. But they're still was the number 3 overall pick, in 2018 with the Kirk Cousins coming full circle, because the Jets tried to get Kirk Cousins in free agency that year. Vikings got him. Jets draft Darnold instead, and it's just a nightmare for him. And I think it was year 2 that he got mono. He's talking about seeing ghosts. Like, it was just a bad setup for him. He got thrown in right away. He is the J.J. McCarthy cautionary tale. Like, don't play a guy right away if he's not ready. Yeah,
and I think he's probably looking at Baker as an example of like, that's what I want. Yes. That's what I want. I want to come here. I want to have a really good season. I want to prove that I can be a starter and earn a big contract somewhere. He knows it's not going to be here, obviously.
Wouldn't be here. Yeah.
I mean, this is a bridge, and
unless he wins the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Good problem to have.
Short of that, I think there's no mystery, I think, to what this is. So For him, I'm sure he's super excited because of you're playing with Justin Jefferson and a head coach who's a smart offensive guy and played the position and knows it intimately. And yes, when you get Hawkinson and Addison back, and not that Addison, is going to be, even if he gets suspended, it's not going to be long, I don't think. But Hawkinson, he's starting on the pup. I would guess a month.
Yeah, it's going to be 4 to 6 games, I would think.
Yeah. And so, but when they're healthy, he's going to be in a good situation. And so I'm sure he's looking at this as like, hey man, this is my shot.
Sam's last stand.
Yeah. And so McCarthy, I just think it is going to be interesting. O'Connell talked about this a little bit on Monday at the press conference about, when Cousins is here, if you watch a practice, the starter takes 75% of the reps. I mean, you're getting that guy ready. Then you have to divvy up. Okay, you want McCarthy to get reps, and O'Connell's, he would called this a competition, and he wants both guys. I mean, I understand the logic there, but I think all signs are that Darnold's going to go in as the starter to the season, unless something crazy happens here in camp. But then, he said, and I wouldn't forget about Nick Mullins, but he doesn't need a lot of reps, and so it'll be interesting to see how they divvy those up because you want McCarthy to get a lot of work. And O'Connell said, I don't worry about that because with training camp, there's plenty of work, plenty of reps for everybody. But it will be interesting to see how they handle the first team reps and how many of those McCarthy will get as this camp goes along here.
Well, and final point on this, but you have to imagine too, when the season starts, if this all plays out how we expect, McCarthy's going to be the number 3 quarterback, right? Like, don't you think? Mullins is going to be if you don't want to rush JJ McCarthy, you're not going to make him your number 2 quarterback and have him be one snap away from having to go into a game.
Well, that's the thing is like, God forbid that Darnold got hurt first quarter. Who are you bringing in?
Yeah. You're bringing in Nick Mullins. You are, unless because otherwise everything you're saying about we're not going to rush it is just lip service because he'd be in the game anyway, whether he was ready or not.
Yeah, and so, and he's a veteran. You can get through all that. So, but it's obviously McCarthy and every throw is going to get analyzed and looks good this day. Does tough day. I mean, if it's based on what we saw in the spring, there's going to be good throws. There's going to be tough moments. There's going to be, he's a rookie. That's just how it is. And we saw last year, even with Kirk Cousins, Brian Flores trying all these exotic things in camp and Cousins getting a little frustrated with that and trying to beat Flores' defense that day versus just, install or whatever, the competitive part of it. Like, that's not an easy defense for anyone to really try to go against on a day-to-day basis because Flores is moving things around and things that you don't normally see in a preseason. And so, but that'll be good for McCarthy's development to have to, try to decipher all that while learning a new offense. I'm sure his head's going to be spinning a little bit here.
Yes. Jaron Hall is also receiving votes at this point, I guess. It's not, but no, it was not a great offseason.
I forgot about Jaron Hall. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Jaron. Go for football, 12th out of 18 in the writers poll. 18 is how many teams are in the Big Ten now. We've almost doubled the mathematical likelihood there. That seems about right to me. Yeah. You look at the over-unders, they're like 4.5 or 5 wins. Maybe they'll be better than that. It kind of depends on the quarterback. Again, if Brosmer is good, then maybe they've got more of a chance to win 6, 7. But the schedule's hard, just like the Vikings. And this league, man, it's not going to get any easier.
No, and I look at that schedule, and there are probably, I think there's probably 7 or 8 games where you're like, flip a coin. I mean, I can see him winning it. I can see him losing it. Like, it's hard to say with any confidence, like, yes, this is one you're going to less. This is a win. This is a loss. I mean, there are a couple on there like Michigan. Okay, I'd say no. Penn State. Yeah. And then a couple in the non-conference were like, okay, that has
better
to
win that one. Yeah.
Yeah. But the rest of them are like, well, they got new quarterbacks and changes here, and it's hard to know. I know. So yeah, so much of this is on Max Brosner and how much he can assimilate and make the jump from the FCS level. A couple things. I do like their where they're at both lines, and so if you're in the Big Ten, that's where you start. The left tackle is going to be an NFL player, Ursary. You got Quinn Carroll back. I mean, they got some experience there on their offense line. Defense line, they got some playmakers. Ja Joyner, straight now. I think Anthony Smith is going to be a nice player for them. Cody Lindenberg, if they can keep him healthy at linebacker, he's a big time talent. So I mean, they have players. Justin Wally's back, and they've done. Now we have to see him, but on paper, they made some nice additions through the portal in terms of getting guys with. I mean, you got a receiver out of from Georgia that transferred here. I mean, you have to show it, right? But so I think particularly with their depth and where they're at along the offensive line, and then obviously Darius Taylor's one of the premier running backs in the league, and Daniel Jackson's a very good wide receiver. So I like their talent. It's just, are they going to be more dynamic offensively? Are they going to add some passing game more than what we've seen the last 3 years, where they've had a bottom 10 passing attack in major college football? That's the big unknown with PJ. We talk about this every year. Are they going to expand the playbook? Are they going to be more balanced?
They tried.
And so it didn't work last year, obviously, for myriad reasons. And we'll see if Max Rosenberg can be that quarterback that they think he is. I think they love his leadership, but also his instincts and timing and being able to process things quickly. So we'll see. But yeah, there's just so many of these, I would call them swing games, where as I sit here today in late July, it looked like those are games that you could just say could go either way. And so how they fare in those games are obviously going to dictate, is this a 4-win team or an 8-win team?
Well, and they could play better than last year, win the same number of games, just because their schedule is that much harder. You don't get the West. You don't get the gentle, soft cushion of the Big Ten West anymore. And that to me makes it, it's a big year for PJ Fleck, and that you don't want to have two back-to-back, 5-win seasons. This isn't the year where I would feel like, oh, PJ Fleck's on the hot seat if he has a bad year, but it feels like the year before the year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you want to continue to see, like, okay, the program is trending in the right trajectory.
Can they compete in this new era of college football?
That's the thing that, so they did away with divisions, Mike. And I think, like, if they get to 20 teams, which I think, or 20 schools, I think they'll eventually do that. Now, will they bring back divisions even before that? I think they have to in some capacity, because we can make fun of the Big Ten West, and we all did it, and we all had great fun with our jokes, but at least it gives those teams in the middle their fans something to root for, and a feeling that they're playing for something. When it's just an 18 team and the best team is going to go on to best two teams are going to go on to the new expanded playoff. There's going to be about 13 schools that by October are out. And so will that hurt the passion, the attention, the interest? I think it will. I think it will. If you feel like, okay, whatever you want to think about the Big Ten West, at least when the Gophers were in the mix, you're thinking, man, if they win this game and that team loses, and you kind of watched it, and that added something to it. If that's gone, I don't think that's necessarily good for college football and good for the conference. So I'm curious to see if they bring back divisions in some way, even if they stay at 18 schools. So, but as it stands right now, it's like, okay, are they going to, start Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Penn State?
Yeah.
Those are going to be the teams that are battling out. Yeah. It's like, then what else are you playing for? Just bowl games or bowl positioning? I guess that's what it is,
I guess. And then even still in that hypothetical, you want to hope that, one out of every 5 years you are in that conversation, like your 2019 kind of team. But there's no guarantees, especially like we talked about. It's not just the divisions, it's the money, it's the NIL era. It's like, are they going to be able to just flat out compete in this new era of college football? Like that's a daunting question to have to answer.
And starting next year, it looks like, as long as the federal judge signs off on the settlement that the NCAA and the power conferences had, they're going to have the option of spending up to the salary cap. I'm going to call it a salary cap, but that's what it is, of $21 million. And Mark Cole, when I sat down with him in June, unequivocally said, we're going to spend the max because we have to. And if you're in the Big Ten, it's not like if the cap is 21 or the ceiling's 21, all the other schools are going to do it. You can't come in and say, we can only afford to spend $10 million. That's not going to work. So can he compete financially? They're going to have to. I mean, they're going to have to figure out a way to do it. You're going to have to be able to offer up to that $21 million cap.
And that's for all sports, right?
Yeah. Now we have to figure out.
A lot of it's going to go to football, though.
Well, and that's the there is the major question that's hanging over is like, does Title IX apply to that?
Yeah.
That's going to be decided in courts because some schools are going to take that to court to see if, does 50% have to go to women, 50 to men? Or can you divvy that out however you want? That's going to be decided by a judge. But if it's not Title IX, doesn't apply to that, you can rest assured the lion's share of that's going to go to football.
Yeah, it's going to be the great shaking out over the next couple of years and just kind of what the future of this all is. But the present is, I like some of the things they did in the offseason. I think they got the quarterback they should have. It's just, how much is it going to matter in an expanded conference against a better schedule? I just don't know yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's when you do away with divisions and it's 1 versus 18, that's, you're one of 18 and you're trying to get to the top and you have this, that's the thing. When you add Oregon, USC, and Washington, and obviously UCLA football's down right now, but when you add some blue blood programs, it doesn't make the job easier.
No.
When you're a middle of the road program. It makes it harder for everyone. And so we have to, and that's not to lower expectations. I mean, but it's reality. I mean, the conference got a lot harder and USC's on the, you knew when there was the West that you weren't going to have to play Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan as often as you would in a non-division league. And now you add USC and Oregon to that mix too. You're going to have to play more of those blue blood games.
Yeah. Even as sideways as last year ended up going, like 4 games left in the season, weren't they in control of their own destiny? And there was like, they might win the Big Ten West. And then it's like, nope, they went 5-7. It was
That's right. November was forgettable.
November was forgettable. November to forget. Well, we'll see where the football takes us fairly soon. They start practice pretty soon. The Vikings obviously start practice now. Chip Scoggins, appreciate all the insights and perspectives today. I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
All right, brother. Thanks, man.
Great stuff from Chip on both the Gopher football team and the Vikings. Like I mentioned at the jump, let's finish with the cooler with a couple other Vikings things. The big one, left tackle Christian Darrisaw signs a 4-year extension, could be worth up to $113 million in new money. They've got their franchise tackle signed. Brian O'Neill signed too. They've got the bookends for a good run for J.J. McCarthy, figuring he will be the quarterback for the longest portion of those two guys being here on long-term contracts. So a good move by the Vikings, not unexpected, but Darrisaw did have some time where they didn't have to figure this out right away, but getting him locked up 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, all those years where they can pencil this in as long as he's healthy. This is our left tackle. That has to feel pretty good. Now, maybe a little bit more under the radar, but Duke Shelley, who a lot of people liked in 2022, he signed elsewhere in 2023. He is back on a deal with the Vikings. I like it. I liked Duke Shelley when he was here. He had some big plays for them in the secondary as a corner in 2022. Interested to see what he can do with Brian Flores' defense in 2024. So adding some depth, adding some possibilities to that group, a smart move by the Vikings. That will do it for me today. Expected to be joined on Thursday's show by Gophers Senior Associate AD Mike Wiersbicki. Going to talk about an interesting nugget I found about the Gophers and the draft, plus plenty of other things on kind of the what's coming up for Minnesota sports as well. So stick around for that on Thursday. Should have some more Vikings talk with Ben Gessling on Friday as we get into camp, find out how JJ is looking early on. Until then, I am Michael Rand, back at it again tomorrow.